Hello everyone and welcome back to the F-Series channel. Happy F-Series Friday! And today we are starting a brand new series on our channel, and this series is called U-Turn. It is a sort of debate, and so we're going to start off with a statement, and to begin with I'm going to ask everyone if they agree or disagree, and just straight starting with that, agree or disagree, and then we're going to have a debate and see if we can kind of turn the others who disagree with us onto our side. It makes sense. We'll just get straight into it. And we have a very, very, very special guest for this first inaugural episode. So everyone please give a very warm welcome to Tommo.
Woo! Amington.
Yes.
Come on.
Yes,
I brought him along as well, just for the occasion.
But yes, thank you for coming on. We're so excited.
Thank you for having me, girls. It's I've obviously been very aware of what you've been doing for a long time now, and it's a pleasure to finally be allowed on.
Yes, congratulations. You're the first official guest on the official F-Series channel.
Yeah, true.
So good for
Iconic.
you. Good going.
Iconic. No, I'm looking forward to it. Be fun.
Yes, it will be. Okay, so we'll just get straight into it. Our statement today is Sebastian Vettel is past his prime. Tommo, I will start with you. Just simply agree or disagree.
Begrudgingly, I agree.
Okay, Beef?
I agree.
Kira?
I disagree.
Ooh. Dawny?
I also disagree.
Charlotte?
I'm also saying disagree.
Okay, I'm saying agree. So we're pretty half and half.
Half and half.
Yeah, okay, right.
Fancy
So
that.
each of us is going to kind of try and explain why we agree. Let's start with the disagree camp. So whoever wants to start off with your reasons as to why Sebastian Vettel is not past his prime, please begin now.
Okay, so I'll start. And I'm just going to talk about the kind of back end of the Ferrari days. And you could really see, when he first stepped up to Ferrari, it was a massive thing, stepping up as a Ferrari driver into the Ferrari camp. But we quickly saw that just fell apart. I think the first years you could clearly see he was dominating Kimi Räikkönen. He was the leader of that team in a way. They had a good connection going on. But when Charles Leclerc came up from his Sauber days, it changed things completely, and the dynamic completely changed. And just to see in the last 2019 2020 how Ferrari really treated him, it was awful to see, actually. And I think that is something that when he gets to Aston Martin, it will step away from that, because you could see physically and mentally how draining it was on him. I mean, not just talking about the hairline, but you could see that it was physically distressing him. Everything in Ferrari in terms of we know their structure is absolutely diabolical. We know that Charles Leclerc threw a spanner in the work for Sebastian, and you kind of just saw him give up, especially after his crash at Germany that year. I feel like it just went downhill from there, and it's not Sebastian, it's not him, and that's not how he's built, and that is not how he is as a driver. I just think the whole environment around Ferrari and how his days have been in the last couple of years, it's just completely broken him. But I don't think it's broken him completely. I don't think it's something that he's been broken from forever. I know I don't want to compare it to Pierre Gasly at Red Bull. However, we saw how much that broke Pierre. But now look how amazing he is flourishing at AlphaTauri. And you can get that back. You may lose it for a certain amount of time if you're in that wrong environment. But I definitely feel like Sebastian can pick this back up. And, you know, when he's in the right environment, when he's in the right car, when he hasn't got that stress on him, no, I think he can turn it around. I do.
Okay, any of the other disagree camp want to add anything to do with this point that Kira's brought up?
I'll add a bit after, but you can reply first.
Okay. Right, let's do our reply then. Who wants to...
I feel like my point goes quite well with this. So,
Go on, Beth.
Kira talking all about Seb's times at Red Bull and how we know he's this fantastic driver, and he just needs to get back in the environment where he can prosper, where he can do his most, do his best. And I think a lot of the time we idolise people when they are at the height of their career without even knowing it. We think that that's what they're constantly capable of at any point in their career. And as a result, because we know Sebastian has done so well in the past, we know he can be like this, we almost come up with excuses as to why he's not performing at his best. So, for example, at Ferrari, it was Ferrari's problem, not Seb's. Ferrari crushed him. The car wasn't for him. And I think we might start to see something similar at Aston because it's a different team. Surely things are going to be different, but that doesn't mean it's going to work out for him. He needs to get up to speed, for example. We might use that as an excuse. But if it doesn't then work out at Aston, what do we say then? Do we also say that Aston Martin is the problem, like we would say Ferrari is the problem? Or was it just simple Red Bull was the perfect match for Seb at that time? And I think the real teller will be this season is comparing his performance to Alonso when Alonso comes back, because if Alonso hits the ground running after having so many years out of the sport, I think it could really show Seb up, and that's when we will start to see people who are so determined that Seb is not past his prime actually go, oh wait, maybe he is.
Does anyone have a reply to that from the disagree camp?
I think it's really interesting what you said about Alonso. I've not quite fully processed it yet. I don't know if it's just because I've not fully processed Alonso coming back yet. But yeah, I think that's such an interesting comparison, and obviously there's such a benchmark there, and it'll be good to compare them. I think my point is that Aston Martin are this massive brand, and they are taking such a risk. They fought to get Sebastian in to kind of be the face of this brand, their new brand coming into Formula One. They're taking such a risk taking him on, and I think that they need to fully believe that he can still achieve results and still be up there, because it won't reflect well on them if they've kind of fought their corner, caused all this drama getting him in, and then he's just a bit rubbish. So surely Aston Martin believe that he is still in his prime and he's still able to deliver these results and put in great drives, and we've seen great drives from him. Like he got a P3 at the end of the season last year. Like, he is still capable, but it will be really interesting to see with the change of environment if that is the issue, which I think it is. But yeah, I think that Alonso one's an interesting one.
And I kind of just want to make a point on that is Aston Martin were very comfortable with Sergio Perez. He had a long contract. They were comfortable in him. He's a great driver. We know that. He's a very secure driver. He put in a lot for that team. They made a big sacrifice to swap him out for Sebastian Vettel. And I don't think a team that is rebranding and that has all this momentum going into it would have swapped that if they didn't believe that he was going to come back to how he was. I'm not saying he was going to come back to how he was in, 2012, 2013, but I think for him to be able to produce results that they want, they wouldn't have done that, and they wouldn't have swapped out such a good driver as Sergio Perez if they didn't believe in him.
Just to disagree with you there, I think what Dorney said about there being a lot of pressure and taking a risk, I want to come back to Sebastian Vettel and how he performs under pressure, because I think in the last few years we've seen him not deal with the pressure very well. Obviously, especially in 2019 when Charles Leclerc came up and he was doing so great. The incident that comes to mind is Monza, and when he had that contact with Lance Stroll and was it Pierre Gasly as well?
Yeah.
It was everyone.
It was everyone that was there.
Bumper cars.
Literally. So that comes to mind, and just I don't think Sebastian Vettel is the best driver to cope under pressure, and I think we are all expecting big things from Aston Martin, and there's a lot of hype around it right now, and I'm not sure whether he is well equipped to be able to deal with that pressure that is going to come with being in a team that is rebranding and trying to launch itself to the front of the grid. I'm not sure how well he's going to be able to cope with that. I know it's going to be a less pressured environment than Ferrari, because Ferrari is, Ferrari. But I'm just not sure how well he's going to be able to cope and deal with the pressures and the risks that he's taken with going to Aston Martin.
I think just to add on to that as well, maybe Vettel is trying to do what Kimi is doing and just leave the sport quietly. Like, if he just has an okay season, at Aston Martin for however long he's there, sort of what Kimi has now done going from Ferrari to Alfa Romeo, is he like looking at Kimi going, you're like, you know what, that looks like a good way to go, like just be chill, just be vibing, like do the bare minimum, and then just like slowly slip away from the sport, and everyone will be like, you know what, well done Seb, we love you, go do whatever you want to do now. Maybe Seb's been chatting to Kimi about
I feel like Seb's not the kind of guy who's going to be worried too much about kind of clout or legacy. Like he keeps himself off the social, he keeps to himself. Like I agree with that point, like in terms of the way Kimi doesn't care about the surrounding stuff, but also I think it's important to remember that they signed him to Aston Martin not just because of the on track. They signed him to Aston Martin because he's a 4 times world champion, and the marquee of bringing a driver in like that, regardless of on-track performance-wise, like because again, objectively, Sergio has had a much stronger last 2 seasons, not just last year. That's the thing. Seb had a pretty poor 2019 as well. He finished 6th in the end, wasn't it? So I think there are a multitude of factors, obviously at play, and I understand why. Obviously, that we know. I mean, a Sergio Sebastian pairing would have been incredible.
Spicy.
That would have been insane. Obviously, that didn't happen, and we all know why. But at the end of the day, like they're hoping for the best with Sebastian. They're hoping that if they can give him a good package, he'll turn it around. But there is no guarantee of that whatsoever.
Yeah. Heading back to the disagree camp. What do you have for us?
I've literally made this point since like the start of last season, really, because I just think a world champion doesn't lose his ability just over in the off season. And I know last season the gap between Abu Dhabi and then obviously the first race in Austria was a bit longer, obviously because of the situation, but I don't think you can just lose your ability overnight. And he was still up fighting with Lewis for world championships in 2018. I know that's now 2 years ago from last season, but I do still think he does have that fight in him. I just think he found it kind of hard when the team that he tried to put everything in got in Charles, and they were like, from the get-go, you knew that Charles was their future, that's who they were going to focus on. And I think you could see that. And I think the way he acted last season, you could see that, like when he just got out the car and would laugh when he just didn't finish again, or when he pulled up on the side of the road. He pulled up on the side of the road, looked under his car and just laughed because he was like, what is going on? And I think you could see that. And I think, Aston obviously got rid of Sergio, and it's like, I wouldn't have done that, but I think they're still willing to give him the chance to like try and fight for that. And I don't know if they will be able to because their car, whatever, but I have high hopes. But I just don't see how you could just lose the fight overnight. And I just hope he still has it, because I would love to see a battle with him and Lewis again, because we all remember times like 2018, 2017, like they were great. So I'd love to see that again.
Yeah. I think just to bounce off that, I don't think Seb has lost his talent overnight. Absolutely no way. What I think we will now see from Seb is these moments of brilliance that we've seen quite a lot of drivers where they'll just have this absolute moment of brilliance, incredible performance. Something that we might see with Pierre from his amazing performances in Brazil in 2019, of course Monza in 2020, how could we forget? We might see something similar to Seb, where he is sort of not your average, slightly above average driver on the grid, but we'll just get these moments of absolute brilliance and we'll be like, oh my god, it's like having this old school Sebastian Vettel back. Is he coming back? But I feel like we might not see much else beyond that.
It's so weird how everyone's such a Sebastian Vettel fan now. Like me, like 3-4 years ago, it's not I didn't like him. Well, I kind of didn't like him. I was like, I just don't like this man very much. And to see him now, I think everyone's a Sebastian Vettel fan now, and everyone wants to see him do well. So I think regardless
of that, it's the redemption arc.
Yeah, it really is.
Definitely.
I think a lot of people look at redemption, they look at all the stories of redemption, but actually Sebastian Vettel has a great redemption story, and it's something that, especially in the next 3 years, would really be a good thing to write about and to do a video about, whatever. So I think at the end of the day, we're just all Sebastian Vettel fans, and we want the best for him.
I'm ready for his autobiography.
Yeah.
Oh, definitely. The thing is, I feel like with Sebastian, he needs a very specific set of circumstances and everything to be working around to get the best out of him. I think you look at a driver like, I know he's a meme now, but Pastor Maldonado, right? He, in terms of pace, Pastor had pace, but there were other factors, his ability to have a crash, for example, being the main thing, that got in the way of him maybe achieving as much as his raw talent, like, you know, justified. But with Sebastian, I agree. I don't think he's lost his raw pace, but the problem is that Sebastian wears his heart on his sleeve, and I think that's something we all like find quite endearing about him. I love to see it. But sometimes, and there's been incidents, whether it's him driving into Lewis, whether it's, you know, crashing with Stroll on the cool down lap, like there's been numerous instances when we say about Charles, when Daniel Ricciardo came in at Red Bull, that kind of seemed to shake Sebastian for the first time in his career. And I don't like, since then, I just think that, you know, that's Seb's biggest kind of weakness, if you ask me, is that if those circumstances aren't in place, he allows and it's not even, there's countless examples of sports people who have this unreal ability, but for one reason or another, whether they're not, like, they don't apply themselves enough, but they've got this God-given talent, they've always got injuries or whatever. And I just think for Sebastian, it's the ability to work with those circumstances, because we make excuses about Ferrari and Ferrari being the bad car, but Seb never really made those excuses himself. He was the one who said, it's the same car, it's not different to Charles. Like, he took on a lot of that responsibility, and I think he has to, because, you know, he comes with a 4-time world championship badge, and we saw how well he performed at Red Bull. But that's why I'm just like, when I think of Sebastian Vettel at his prime is where all those things come together, which they did for those 4 seasons at Red Bull, but I just haven't seen all them 4 things come together since then. So for me, I just can't say that he is not past his prime, because the chance of him getting back to that and all those circumstances coming together perfectly, I think is a big ask.
Yeah, and just to kind of like pick up on that, he was so dominant in those Red Bull years. He was an incredibly dominant driver, and I think a lot of that came from his pace and the car that he was in. So Seb was known for, you know, having great qualifyings and being right at the front of the grid, and then building a massive gap between him and whoever was behind him. And that's how he won quite a few of his races. Not all of his races, but that's how he won quite a few of them. And for him to not be at the front of the grid all the time, I think he struggled with that a little bit at Ferrari, and I think it was very evident last year, because Charles who was in the midfield in 2018, so he had a good knowledge of what it's like to be in the midfield, whereas Seb hasn't been necessarily in the midfield for quite a few years, and his dominance was kind of when he was at the front of the grid and had a capable car. So I'm not slagging off Seb's wheel-to-wheel combat at all. I'm fairly sure that he'll be able to, you know, capitalise on being in the midfield, and like I think it was Beef that said, looking forward to seeing how him and Alonso and Dorney, I just forget you all. I'm just looking forward to seeing how he works with Alonso in the midfield, because Alonso has a lot of experience in the midfield. He has been in the midfield for, you know, a lot of his career. So I'm excited to see how he and Seb kind of compare with each other. But I don't think Aston Martin is still a midfield team. It's not at the front yet, and I don't think Seb is the driver necessarily to best take you forward if you're a midfield team necessarily.
But I think Aston Martin could get right at the top. We know how close they were. Obviously McLaren did pip them last year in the constructors, but 2 drivers of theirs had COVID. They had a lot of points taken off them because of, you know, the 2.0 situation. But I feel like they are on this up. As much as they've rebranded, they are still Racing Point, and they are still on that upwards consistency that they were at. So I just personally have a lot of faith in them. I guess the argument kind of is, do we have faith more so in Aston Martin? Because as Tommo said about the situation, he needs everything aligned for everything to work kind of in place. And, you know, as soon as everything's in line for Sebastian, that's when we see the best of him. So it's whether Aston Martin can give that to him, or whether it's going to be another Ferrari situation. So I'm not going to lie, Aston Martin, it's all on you, really. So
come on, Lawrence, sort it out.
Right, does anyone from the agree or disagree camp have any further points to share with the group?
No, I'm finished.
Okay,
I'm done.
So we rest. Okay, so I feel like I didn't explain this at the start, but this is the part which revolves around the U-turn title.
Wow, good explanation.
So what we're going to do is we're going to ask everyone whether they agree or disagree with the statement again and see if anyone has done a U-turn since the beginning of the video. So that's where the U-turn title comes from, if that wasn't clear. So let's start off with Tommo, because we started off with him at the beginning. Are you still in agreement, or are you switching camps?
I'm sorry. I'm being stubborn. I'm sticking to my gun. No, I've just got no reason to think that, you look at the question, is he past his prime? I think, for me, it's subjective. He's past his prime at the moment. Could he potentially get there? Maybe. But for right now, he is past his prime.
Okay. Beef?
I gotta say, I still agree. I still think he's past his prime, but I'm just thinking now, like, imagine if I'm proved wrong. That would be so good. That'd be so good for the sport. That would just be great for everyone. So I am willing to be shown that I'm incorrect. But for now, I do think Seb is past his prime.
Kira?
I think if you look at it on the surface, his prime days were his Red Bull days. But I am putting a lot of faith into the next couple of years, because I really believe in redemption in Formula One, and I really believe that when you're in the right environment, you can make it, and you can, revive yourself no matter what your age is. So I am still going to disagree, in the hopes that these Aston Martin days really, bring him back into himself, because we just saw how harsh those Ferrari days were on him, especially last year. So I think the measurement here is whether the hairline grows back or not, I think that's how we can measure this to see whether it's going to work or not. So if we come back in a year or two, check the hairline out, and that's how we'll know the answer. But
That's the barometer of success, that is.
It is. But no, I'm going to stick with disagree.
Okay, Dawny?
I'm very borderline. I think I was probably quite borderline to start with. It depends how you define prime. He's still in the prime of being a really good Formula One driver, but he's definitely on the decline from his prime, perhaps. But very, very much on the cusp, I'd say.
Dawny, stop sitting on the fence. Give an answer.
I think we got her.
Yeah, I think we got it, boys.
Yes!
Maybe I made a U-turn.
She's made a U-turn.
Our first U-turn!
First U-turn of the series. But
We love to see it. Okay, Charlotte.
Kira's fuming.
I'm fuming.
No, I am sticking with Kira
Oh.
because I
Feels so
just want to
bad.
stay behind
win 'em
him. And no, you can't. And I just think, I don't know, I just have hope that, like Kira said, everything will come together for Aston Martin. You know, they're like, it's not as if they're a brand new team. They just changed their name and deliver it at the end of the day. They're still going to be, hopefully, as good as they were last season. So, yeah, because I am staying with you, and I'm saying I disagree, and hopefully the next couple of years he can get back into his winning ways.
Thank you. We're not the only ones. Dawny's a little snake.
I definitely
feel so
I definitely
bad.
think if any team can bring it back out of him, it is that team.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah, 100%.
Of any team on the grid. But again, yeah. I'm as hopeful as you lot are. Like genuinely, I really hope he does turn it around. I am.
Really?
But also, Kira, I like to look at facts. Okay, I like to look at how it is
Facts.
at
He's
the
looking at
moment.
the George
all
Russell
right?
facts
I
and
can
thinking
wish,
of
I can
facts.
dream that Seb's gonna win another world title. I'd love to see it, but I just don't.
All right.
But hopefully, fingers crossed.
Yeah, me too. I'm sticking with my guys in the agree camp. I think Dawny's right. It defo depends on how you want to define prime. And for me, Lewis Hamilton is incredibly dominant right now. He's in his prime. So when I look at Sebastian Vettel and the way he's performing, I don't think he's in his prime any longer. That's not to say he's not a good driver. That's not what we're saying. Or I'm saying. You guys might be saying that. I don't know. But not me. But yeah, I am sticking with my agree camp. So we had one U-turn. Thanks, Dawny.
You're welcome.
But yes, that is the end of this video. Thank you so much to Tommo for taking the time to come and waffle with us and argue.
Been a pleasure. Good fun.
Yeah, we hope to have you back soon. We hope you enjoyed, guys, and don't forget to leave this a like and subscribe down below if you have not already, and we will see you next F-Series Friday. Bye!
Bye.